Welcome to the favorites presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. The conference title games are upon us. We have all the info that you need to get set for all of that and get some bets in pocket today as well. I'm Brandon Kravitz, joined by my favorites crew, the Prime Minister of Degenerate Nation, Stuckey, the Queen of the Pod, Miss Kendra Middleton. On today's episode, we've got action or distraction coming up in moments. Stuckey's random question of the week, 2 kings and a queen parlay, courtesy of DraftKings. But let's head straight to the primer for our shrimply unbelievable stat of the week. 2 teams off of overtime, the Broncos and the Rams off of an overtime win in the divisional round last week. Since 2015, teams off of OT facing a team that was not are winning at a rate of just 43.9%, 46% of those games against the spread, so slight tick up ATS. This season, those teams went 10 and 18 straight up, 11 and 17 against the spread, but that counts in season games for the regular season. Looking specifically at the playoffs, when a team is off of an overtime win in the postseason and is playing obviously another playoff game in the next round, they are 0-5 straight up, 1-4 ATS since 2015, and losing by a healthy margin as well. Kendra, how much do you factor in overtime impact into this weekend's games as you look at the Broncos and the Rams?
I definitely think it matters because at this point in the season, no team is perfectly healthy. No player is perfectly healthy. And the more minutes and the more time and the more snaps, downs, everything that you have on your body matters. We've seen kind of I pointed maybe towards the exhaustion towards the Eagles this year, the Chiefs this year, just having so many more games on your body. So I think that it's probably silly to say that it doesn't matter. I mean, at this point in the season, nobody's healthy. Every second of rest you can get is important.
I would say that it matters more in fading the Rams because this is their third straight
road game.
So you would think that they would be more impacted by that. I happen to know after watching the Sunday six pack, Stuckey, that does not factor in enough to your analysis, and perhaps we'll get a beat on this later on in the show. So if you want to save some of this in your pocket, by all means do so, but not enough to scare you off the Rams.
No, especially at 3. I mean, look, we've had teams. I think it's a small factor, but like, I mean, the 2012 Ravens went on to win the Super Bowl. They played wild card weekend, went on the road, won in overtime, and then against the Broncos in double overtime in altitude. The next week they went up to New England and destroyed Brady in the conference championship game with Joe Flacco. 2003 Panthers, who went on to the Super Bowl. They played wild card weekend, won in overtime against the Rams, and then went to Philly as an underdog and dominated the Eagles then, and then went on to the Super Bowl to play the Patriots. So I think it is a factor, but you also got to remember divisional home field advantage isn't worth as much. There's familiarity there. McVay's generally been good when it comes to travel, and teams are getting smarter with just over time with traveling and taking care of their bodies, and so I do think it's a small factor, but the Rams are getting healthier too, and the Seahawks they have a potential issue at left tackle. They lost one of their running backs, but I mean, getting Dotson back's huge for the Rams. They have Devontae Adams back this time around. Quentin Lake back on the defensive side of the ball. I just at a 3, even an expensive 3, I'd have to play the Rams. I mean, we're go back to week 16, and the Rams dominated Seattle. And I mean, I was on Seattle +1 at home. One of the reasons is because Dotson was out, Adams was out, and Seattle was basically healthy outside their left tackle, which might be the case again this week. But in that game, I was getting +1 lucky bet. I mean, it took a miraculous 2-point conversion, a comeback from down 16 that included a punt return for a touchdown. Now, special teams are a concern again now. Seattle's special teams are elite. But the Rams, I mean, the Seahawks were a +1 home dog in week 16. Since then, yeah, the Rams have been a bit more inconsistent, but we had a full body of work after week 16, including a game at Seattle where I said, Rams are clearly the best team in the NFL. They put up close to 600 yards in Seattle on that defense that was healthy without Adams and without Dotson. Now we fast forward a month later and we're pushing 3 on this line. I can't get there. I think this is a little bit of recency bias weighing in on both sides, with the Rams not covering in back-to-back weeks, looking a little shakier. And then the Seahawks, I mean, the last 3 games since then, they played the 49ers practice squad twice, and they match up so well against the 49ers and the Panthers. Like that's all. We've only gotten 3 games against 2 opponents for Seattle.
Talk about the
Against teams,
Patriots having it easy.
yeah, but against teams that they match up well. And at the end of the day, I have the better quarterback, the better offensive line, the better receivers, the better running back room, and I'm going up against a quarterback. What pushes this over the edge for me of why I'm going to play the Rams, that I want like a 3 minus 120-ish or better, is you like what I think this comes down to is it's going to come down to coaching. Like there's going to be some curveballs from McVay. I thought he had an awful game last week. He generally has positive curveballs, but like formation wise, personnel wise, you go back to the first meeting, it was 65% 11 personnel. The second meeting, it was like 65% 13 personnel. Well, they abandoned that last week. 13 personnel doesn't work as well against Seattle's defense anyway. So I'm curious to see what they do. And what Seattle does to counter what the Rams did in that second meeting. They ran right at even war. They had no answer for Puka. Do they bracket Puka here? How do they handle that? Like those little adjustments, this is like a coaching porn game when the Rams have the ball. But the Rams can get pressure, and Darnold under pressure. We've seen it countless times against this Rams team, 3 times in the last 2 years, including in the playoffs last year. He's going to make mistakes. And what puts this over the top, which might kind of counteract some of this scheduling advantage, because it's definitely an advantage for Seattle. At home, they had a bye and then a laugher. And then the Rams had to go to Carolina in a war, to Chicago in a war in overtime, and now to Seattle. It's definitely an advantage for Seattle. But the oblique injury for Sam Darnold, I think it's like last week he didn't have to do anything. He threw for what, 120 yards? Um,
What
but
about Stafford though? Because that last week the finger was a storyline going into that game against Chicago. He didn't play great.
People are talking
Uh,
about his back right now.
well, they've been
Again.
talking about his back for years, I
Yeah, I
feel
was gonna
like. So
say
are we sure, and perhaps the number that we're seeing is somewhat reflective of this, that there's less confidence that Matt Stafford is at 100% right now.
yeah, I mean, no one's really at 100%, but like, uh,
Yeah, but
even
the
if he
quarterback
plays,
not being 100% throwing
well,
the
we
football
know
is a
that
much
Darnold
bigger
is not
factor.
100%. I mean, you could see it on his deep balls last week. He's grimacing. He's not going to be able to scramble, or his mobility is going to be limited. He's getting heat on the sidelines. And the thing is, with an oblique, I think there's like a 10 to 15% chance it like really flares up and becomes problematic. And that occurs, the risk of that goes up with each pass attempt, and each time you have to, torque your body and throw it downfield. And last week he didn't have to do much. But if, I think this week he's not going to have that same luxury where, Seattle's up 28-3 for most of this game. I don't think that's going to be the case. So, yeah, there's definitely an argument to be made that Stafford might not be at 100%, although the conditions were just not ideal last week.
Not ideal, but Stafford held without a touchdown for the first time in 19 starts this season, and that was against Chicago. And I know the weather wasn't great. It's the Bears defense is awful, and he still had one of his worst performances of the season. So
Yeah, but the other thing
I
worth
do think
worth
that's part
noting
of the
is
story needs to be told.
Darnold hasn't. I mean, this Seattle offense has pretty much been figured out. I mean, you go back to Evan talked about this earlier in the week. I mean, since the first 9 weeks of the year, I mean, Darnold was unbelievable. Like I think number one in EPA per play. So I think he's like bottom 5 since week 10. And teams have figured out they're just going lighter boxes. Now the Seattle run game has gotten better as a result, but the explosive plays have disappeared. And like you also what's and Darnold over the past since he's played the Rams, he's played Carolina and San Francisco, the 2 worst teams in the league in terms of pressure rate. And that's the biggest handicap when it comes to Darnold. Like, can you pressure him? And when you do, he makes mistakes. So I think there's a very high risk that he makes which he's done all year against the Rams. Back-breaking mistakes, killer mistakes. So
He's had like
I
what,
just
almost 10 turnovers against them alone. I want to say it's like 7.
Yeah, and like that pick was so, I mean, some of the interceptions have been so bad. Um, so yeah, I just think at three, this line can't be three, in my opinion. So that's the side that I'm looking at.
Well, I did just look ahead at the show notes, and I do think we're
I
gonna
bet you
have
did, Kravitz.
Evan. You might want to stretch for later in the show. Might have
Guess who? Guess who the problem child is once again.
Oh man, it's gonna be fun. We will get back to that in a moment, but it's time to delve into the weird, the bizarre, the random with Stuckey's question of the week.
All right. If for the next 5 years, you, in order to have a cell phone, you could only have three. This does not include phone calls and texts. Um, so you're on and like internet. So on your phone, you're gonna have on like your home page, you're gonna have your phone icon, your text, your email, and your browser. Those are given, you're allowed to have them. You can only have three apps on your phone, and you have to choose them, and then that's it. You can't swap them out. You only can have three apps on your phone for the next 5 years.
Oh, this is so easy.
Mm-hmm.
So easy. I'm
Uh,
glad you gave us the freebies there. And those were, you said text, email, browser, calls
yeah,
those were the
those
those
are
are the
default.
locks. Those are the ones at the bottom of my screen. So great call on that. I mean, I don't know if that's the same for everybody out there, but
I
still.
mean, you could change it, but that's how I
Pretty,
think it's default.
yeah, I think that's the way to go.
Does
The
my
notes.
camera count?
Camera is an app that you would have to choose.
Oof.
Oh, damn. That's now okay. That got a little tougher. So I was gonna go with my notes app I use every day. It's loaded, reminders, show prep, everything. Things about my son that notes from the past moment when he was born, and that like all of that stuff is lives on my notepad. So that's very important to me. The Maps app is
That
the
was mine
only
too.
way I
Yep.
have I have completely just sort of leaned into technology as the decades have gone by. I could not find my way around the corner without my Maps app. And then I was gonna say, I know that this is hey, company shill. The Action Network app might be the app that I open the most to track bets and all of that great stuff that you get. The great advice from people like both of you. So those would be my three, but then I'd have to eliminate my camera. I guess I would buy a camera. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with those three: action, notes, and maps.
Uh, Maps, no chance. I don't go enough places. Um, like I'm home or I go to my wife's bar or like food shopping or I go to the airport down the street. I don't need a map app. So that I'm not taking. I'm also definitely not using a notes app because now I get that you use it a lot, but I never use my notes app. But if you went into my texts, I text myself all day throughout the day.
You text
Um,
yourself?
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean it's
just like
essentially the same thing. It's
it's the
just a
same
different
thing.
way
It's
of
just I
note
have a
keeping.
text. It's just I text myself. So I just pull up text and I'll say like, it could be like a tweet. I'll tweet to myself. Well, actually, I just bookmark tweets, but it's usually just like a note or look into this or this stat or something that I came across one while watching a game that I want to dig into. So I text myself all the time. Um, so that's how I handle the notes. Mine by far, I mean, mine is very, very easy. Like I don't even have to think twice about it. It's the three that I use most. I mean, my screen time is 18 hours every day, and it's mostly Action app, uh, Twitter, and uh, I would need a sportsbook app. So shout out DraftKings. sponsored the show. So this is what I spend all my time doing: tweeting, logging bets, doing
Pl-
stuff for the
Placing
app,
them.
and then placing bets. So those are my three. That's what I spend my entire time doing. I would miss, I like to take breaks from work and um and doom scroll TikTok sometimes. Would miss that.
TikTok, yeah.
Oh yeah, it would be tough to give some of these
I'd
up
be
for
so
sure.
productive.
Not being able to watch a football
Yeah,
game or a
become so much
basketball
more
game anywhere
productive.
we go, you know?
I
Podcast, I'd have to do it on my laptop.
Yeah,
Um,
that's how I
but
kind of came to my answer was
what
the
do you
things
got?
that I don't use on desktop very often or can't use on desktop. So I use Twitter on desktop all the time. I can use the Action, website on here. I can use DraftKings on my computer. The things that I cannot use on my computer, obviously the camera, maps, and then Instagram because the Instagram like on the browser sucks and you can't upload anything for there. So for work, I would have like I make money on Instagram obviously. So it would have to be those three because those are the things on the like I can't use on a browser.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
I would miss banking on the app. I don't
Oh
really
shit,
like going to
yeah.
the website. That would suck. But that, I mean,
Oh,
you gotta make concessions here.
Yeah, I would actually miss the one app I would really miss is probably ESPN app for like
yeah.
streaming games at any time, any hour. Like I will always, where if I'm out or just as an extra screen, or even when I'm at home with all my screens off, an extra game streaming on my phone. I would really miss that. That's when I'm looking at my most used apps. That for streaming I would miss, but yeah, that's what I would choose. Evan, you got a good answer for this? You're muted.
Not really, because when you look at my apps and you look at like what I use the most, I don't think that's the answer because I think like the banking stuff and that is what I tend to like not appreciate. Like,
Mm.
my most used apps are like X, Slack, Action, some
Ew, did you
Discord, the
just
operators.
say
Huh?
X?
I don't know.
By
It
the way,
says
can
X
we
here, Twitter.
a quick aside? How do you find what apps you use the most? Where is that information?
You
It's
there so
here.
if you go to your settings, you can see like your usage.
Screen time, it's called.
Are you talk amongst yourselves? We'll be looking this
Yeah,
up.
I mean, I just can't believe Evan used Twitter's stripper name. I'm kind of
that is
offended.
fair. Well, good job by them. That's some marketing wins.
Yeah, no, I would have to use I don't know how buying a camera wouldn't work for me because like what do you do when your dog's just doing something cute or your kid's doing something cute? You just go like grab your camera from wherever it is.
No, you're right. Camera and banking were two things I actually didn't think about, but I don't know how I could leave those two things behind because I just don't I don't want to walk into a bank
Could you
and I'm not buying
imagine
a camera.
No, but
walking
you
into
can
a
go on
bank?
your laptop to your bank.
You could. That's fair. That is fair.
I don't think I've ever logged on to my bank or like Vanguard accounts on a laptop, but I mean you
Correct.
could. That's
Oh,
not
I
like
thought you were
something.
gonna say on your phone. I was like, what?
No,
What
on
about
like
like checking mail? I don't know.
yeah. Okay, that was my question anyway.
Anyways,
That was good.
Fantastic.
that was a
Time
good
for
one.
action or distraction for Rams Seahawks. We have a prior matchup to go off of. Not the case for the AFC title game. So, what I did today is I took a little dive into common opponents for the Patriots and the Broncos. And here is what I found. They both played the Raiders, Bills, Titans, Jets, Bengals, Giants, and Chargers. The Patriots went 8-2 in those games. The Broncos went 9-1. Patriots average margin plus 10.1. Broncos average margin just 6.5. And that was with Bo Nix. Action or distraction, Kendra, as this being anything that resembles a factor of analysis for you.
I think it's a good thing to look at, but it's not something that I personally looked at when I was getting to the window on one of my options for our parlay later. And to be honest, kind of something that I thought about, do we really let's be honest with ourselves here. Do we really think that there is that large of a drop off between Bo Nix and Jarrett Stidham? Because I personally do not.
Well, the sports books would disagree. because the number has swung wildly, and it seems like there is a divide. This is the time of year where public versus sharp money is more pronounced than any other time in the year, this week, next week. And it seems to me, reading the market, like the public is all over New England, and the sharp bettors out there are all over the Broncos because this number has swung too wildly. So, it depends on what side of the aisle you're on, but the
I'm
sports
asking
books
you
are obviously
personally, do you think?
they are welcoming the Broncos. They are welcoming sharp action on the Broncos as it stands right now. To me, I don't know. I am pretty comfortable saying I have no idea. Jarrett Stidham hasn't played in 2 years, and I do think we're underrating maybe not the total body of work of Bo Nix, but specifically what he does in key situations. The Broncos have orchestrated a number of fourth quarter comebacks. They're one of the most pass happy teams in the NFL. In fact, Bo Nix had more pass attempts than any other quarterback in the league this year. And they were the 1 seed. There has to be a correlation there between his quality in comebacks late in games. You need quarterbacks to do that. In overall pass attempts, you have to have trust from your coach in order to obtain that. And so I do think we are perhaps overthinking this drop off of Nix to Stidham not being a big deal when in fact it is. But I'm not 100% confident on that. That's just sort of where my mind has led me on this debate.
I mean, no one's saying it's not a big deal. Just like going from Nix isn't an elite quarterback by any stretch. I mean, no one can make that argument. And like a drop off from an elite quarterback to just like an average backup would be, in some cases 7 points.
But it's an average backup that hasn't played in 2 years that is making his first start of the season in the most high pressure situation. So I
think that helps them though, because
I think the uncertainty helps. I mean, look, we saw we saw Phillip Rivers not playing 5 years ago against the Seattle defense, and he should have beat them. Speaking of the Seahawks, they should have won that game if not for a 60-yard field goal. And he had familiarity with the system. I mean, Stidham's been around for years under Peyton, so has familiarity with the system. Here's the difference is that with Stidham, a lot of times you get these backups that come in and they don't have any mobility whatsoever, which kills them. Stidham is sneakily mobile, which always is helpful. But most importantly, in addition to his familiarity with the system, is he's working behind one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. That's enormous. And with an elite play caller. Like, this isn't your normal situation for a backup quarterback coming in. And you go back to what Stidham, and look, Stidham's numbers, he's only had 4 starts since 2022. If you remove garbage time and you look at all the quarterbacks with a minimum of 100 snaps since 2022, there's 82 of them. He ranks 19th in success rate. That's basically Jalen Hurts. 33rd in adjusted EPA per play. That's basically Baker Mayfield. 41st in EPA plus completion percentage over expectation. That's basically Mitch Trubisky, which I think is like a fair comp. This isn't like Max Brosmer or a bottom of the barrel backup.
He's one of the better backups in the league.
I agree. And those 4 games when he started, 2 were with the 2022 Raiders, who
and he threw 365 yards in that game.
Yeah, one against a really good 49ers defense. But that Raiders offense was 24th in DVOA, 25th in pressure rate allowed. The 2023 Broncos were 27th on offense, DVOA, 31st in pressure rate allowed. So he was in awful situations with bad offensive lines, which won't be the case here. And there's an uncertainty factor. It's one of the reasons why I like the Broncos' first quarter in this game as well, plus a half a point. There's some uncertainty with what they're going to do with Stidham. I assume they're going to get super creative here with packages, personnel usage. Maybe you go heavier, and they're going to have Peyton's going to have some curveballs here. And by the way, Bo Nix this year has been arguably the worst quarterback in the NFL in the first quarter. He's 31st in EPA plus completion percentage over expectation out of 32 quarterbacks, basically tied with Flacco for dead last. 27th adjusted EPA per play, 29th in success rate, 31st in completion percentage over expectation. You mentioned all the stuff he's done late. That's where a lot of Nick's value has come. But early on in games, he's been really poor. So the drop off can't be that significant especially in the first quarter, to one of the worst quarterbacks in the first quarter this year, to what Stidham is with all of the uncertainty. You also have it's Denver in January at home, like with an inexperienced quarterback. You're going to have that crowd noise, the altitude. The defense is going to come juiced. I think they can get pressure on May. And by the way, you might say, all right, well, May's been his numbers are elite in the first quarter. But if you break
Terrible
it
in the
down,
postseason, though. Terrible postseason.
yeah, he's been the worst quarterback so far in the postseason in the first quarter, even worse than Stroud. And if you look at even from average to above average defenses he's faced this year, and it's stretching it because the Patriots have played nobody. I'm including like the Steelers, Falcons, Saints, Raiders, and the Ravens in this. They were 2-6 in the first quarter. They averaged only 4.5 points per game. They were shut out 3 times, scored more than a touchdown only once. So, yeah, I think that the Denver pressure can cause May issues. But additionally, you see this when like your star or your quarterback is out. That first game, everyone else kind of steps up. You also have that uncertainty factor. You have these new looks that the other team isn't prepared for. And then now all of the pressure shifts to New England. All of it, right? Like you can't pass up this opportunity. In the AFC, you got to go through Mahomes for every year for the last 7 years. The Patriots finally get to the AFC Championship game, and they have to go through Jarrett Stidham. Like all of the pressure's on New England here. So, yeah, I think it's too much of an adjustment. I wouldn't be surprised if more Denver money comes. But as you said, public money can have a say depending on how much sharp money is how much respected money is on the other side. And there could be conflicting opinions too on both, which I could see. There's a lot of uncertainty in this game. There is a world where Stidham is a disaster. I fully admit that, but
I don't think we're going to see that quote unquote sharp action come in on New England until this number drops to, it's at 4.5 in some places. If
yeah, you might get some by 4.
Right.
I would I think this line should be like, I would set it at 3.5. I'm at like 3.3. So
Evan, what do you think as far as the way that this action tilts, where the buy point will be on New England?
I'd be shocked to see it roll below 4. I feel like 4 is going to be like a bit of a demarcation point, would be my guess. I was kind of shocked for it to go to 5.5 and 6. But again, I mean, right now you got like 3/4 of the tickets in the money on New England. So at this rate, you've seen the line come down because I'm guessing you've seen some big bets on Denver. But at this rate, you don't really see big money, especially respected money, usually till we get closer to the weekend. So I think it could close. I think it's probably right around where it is. Yeah, 4.5 would be where it closes.
I think it's going to close 4 at some sharper shops.
Kendra, before I get to the next question, what's the conversation been in your area of the country as far as the confidence level? Are New England fans just assuming that this is a route
People
like 21-3?
People here think the Patriots are absolutely going to beat the out of the Broncos. And I think that is insane, especially when you take the history of New England playing in Denver in the postseason into consideration. I just think people here are way too cocky and are getting off on the fact that they've had an easy schedule. And it's insane to me how confident people here are. I don't think that I've heard anybody at our station say that they think the Broncos can even hang in this game this week.
Yeah. That sounds about right.
It's
all right,
insane.
We get to 2 more, and then we've got a pickle prop to get to, and our 2 kings and a queen parlay. The Seahawks have allowed just 7 points in the second half over their last 3 games. And in his last 3 playoff games as a defensive coordinator and a head coach, Mike McDaniel or Mike McDonald's defense has allowed a combined 0 second half points. So action or distraction on this handicap. Rams first half money line parlayed with the Seahawks full game money line plus 470. Or if this is more your style, bet the Rams first half and then live bet Seattle when we go to the halftime break, whichever is more your style. Stuckey, action or distraction on this creative way to play the NFC Championship game?
Distraction. I have no interest in doing that. I think this is all going to come down to the game plan, also the health of the quarterbacks, as we mentioned. But it's that chess match, and it's very, very difficult to predict. Unless you're in the room with McVay and McDonald. I do think that if the Rams get up, like I don't think that's and especially like by margin, that's not ideal for Seattle. I think they're toast then. I don't see Seattle. I know they came back the first meeting, but again, the Rams were not fully healthy, and it took miracles. Took a punt return touchdown. It took an incomplete 2-point conversion that got scooped up, and then the Rams also missed a field goal that would have won the game, and then Seattle eventually wins on a 2-point conversion in overtime. Because the Rams can then just tee off on Darnold, and I don't. And with that oblique injury, I don't think that would end well. I think Seattle's script this year, sans that miraculous comeback, is their defense and special teams have come out and made plays early and given them leads, and then their offense just can play complementary football. You don't have to do too much. I mean, look at all their wins. So many blowout wins this year they've had because their defense and special teams have made plays. That's who this team is. A lot of people remember this Seahawks team early in the year when Darnold was hitting JSN down the field every other play. That's not who they are. And that's not who they've been.
They haven't been that team for a while.
Yeah, it's in the whole second half of the season. So, yeah, I mean, going back here, Darnold, weeks 1 through 9, he was third in EPA per play, first in yards per attempt. Since week 10, he's 27th in EPA per play, 12th in yards per attempt. And that's because teams have adjusted to their offense. It's one of the reasons the run game now is a little bit more successful. They were 27th in EPA per play over the first 9 weeks. Since then, they're 11th. It's because they're facing more lighter boxes. Teams are saying, okay, run the ball. I don't care. We're going to take away the explosive play. Early on in the season, they were just running it into heavier boxes with heavier personnel. They didn't care that it was inefficient because then it was setting up the play action game and then the deep shots. Well, defenses have adjusted and said, all right, we're going to bracket JSN. We're going to take away our explosive pass. Go ahead and run the ball. The Seahawks are fine doing that. As long as, especially if they're playing from ahead, it gets a little bit more problematic if they're playing from behind. So, yeah, I don't like that. I think this is going to come down to just the game plans early on. And I mean, one thing that I will say for your approach or for that suggestion is maybe the fatigue sets in late for the Rams after all of this travel over the past month or two, and that advantage for the Seahawks shows more in the second half. But I'm going to say distraction.
Yeah, I have a hard time personally figuring out how the game script is going to go early on in this one, but we're going to eliminate Rams first half as an option here. Kendra, many months ago, the Mentalist predicted a Rams Broncos Super Bowl using Stafford, Adams, Kyron, Kobe Durant, Oz Perlman, I think his name is, predicted the exact outcome of the upcoming Super Bowl. His pick was the Rams to beat the Broncos 23-14. So, I mean, you've asked your Uber driver for some picks that have paid off. So, action or distraction on the clairvoyance of one Oz Perlman?
Action. My favorite holiday is Groundhog Day. So the fact that we have a clairvoyant rodent, I can't get away from clairvoyance now. It's the best holiday. I'm pro clairvoyance. I also would love this for my bets. And this is exactly what I think is going to happen. So action from me. I love this. I think that this is perfect and it's everything that I want. I think that it would be hysterical to have a Jared Stidham Super Bowl.
Well, this would be your longest payout if you were to parlay the Broncos and the Rams to meet up in the Super Bowl. And then you can just kick back, kick your feet up, and let everybody else bet the Super Bowl while you count your dollars. Still to come, 2 kings and a queen get nominated on our weekly parlay. But first, a word about DraftKings from the First Lady.
The Favorites podcast is sponsored by DraftKings Sportsbook, and in partnership with DraftKings, our listeners are getting a great offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. The next great touchdown is coming, and you can bet on it. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Pick 6 and have the shot to win cash prizes. To get started, use promo code FAVORITES when signing up with DraftKings. Again, use code FAVORITES when signing up and bet $5 to get $300 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. The crown is yours.
It is the triumphant return of Kendra's pickle prop. Let's pop that jar back open. What are we looking at?
So I'm looking at some Stidham rushing props. We've kind of talked a little bit about how mobile he actually is. And I get that the Patriots game plan is going to be to stack the box, have Milton Williams waiting there for the run. They're going to make Jarrett Stidham beat him with his arm. But I don't think people are taking into account how mobile Jarrett actually is. And I think that this number kind of shows that. I was on DraftKings earlier. 15 plus rushing yards from him is minus 111, or over 20 is plus 148. I think over 20, that's kind of a really, really good price, in my opinion. But what do you guys think? I'm kind of sitting here on which one to get on.
Does he run a lot? I mean, his stats in the past, which we have a very limited sample of.
He's pretty mobile.
No, he does. He hasn't run a ton in the past. He does have some mobility, but he was playing behind atrocious offensive lines.
Bad lines.
With offenses that didn't use the quarterback to run. So I could see it.
But
Patriots
I
have
don't.
been blitzing a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say they make Bo run.
I think they're gonna. Peyton's got to get creative, and they use Nix's legs a ton. So I think it would make sense to, have some of those same plays and use Stidham's legs. And the Patriots, the one constant, the one thing that I do believe in with the Patriots, like you could go, and I mean, May is very, very good, but you cannot deny that he played no top 10 defenses all year until the past 2 weeks, and he has 6 fumbles and hasn't looked as effective. The offensive line is problematic. But their run defense is legitimate when healthy, and now they're fully healthy. You saw them slip a little bit at the end of the year when you had Milton Williams in particular was hurt, Tonga, and they had some injuries at linebacker, and their run defense slipped a bit. But when they were healthy, over the first 12 weeks of the season, and then since the very end of the regular season when they got fully healthy, that run defense is dominant. You can't really run on them. So traditionally with your running back. So that is one thing that I am, as someone who bet the Broncos, that is one thing that I am worried about. You have a backup quarterback with a really good offensive line, but I don't know how much Stidham's going to be able to rely on a complementary rushing attack, which is always a nice thing to have. But because of that, one of the ways that Peyton can counteract that is to get more creative in the run game. So that could be, some jet sweeps, getting Mims involved, and then using Stidham's legs, rolling him out, maybe, some designed runs. He's going to have to scramble a bit. So, yeah, I don't mind that look at all.
I kind of think it's all or nothing. Either Stidham is going to be involved in the run game and you go with the bigger payout, or
yeah, I agree. I like the 20 plus more.
Yeah.
I think
I'm in the
it's
same boat.
Yeah, 20 plus or pass at plus 148 for Kendra Middleton. You feel better about that one?
No, I feel good about it just because, like I said, like they do have Bo run straight down the middle of the field often, and I could see them trying to get Jarrett involved just because they're expecting them to try to run the ball so much that they are going to have to get creative, and I think that that's one of the ways that they can. And I don't think that people consider how mobile Jarrett really can be. And like Stuckey said, he's played behind some really bad offensive lines. So when I was looking at props today, it was just something that I thought really kind of jumped off the page at me.
Yeah,
I mean, price.
The only thing that I would be worried about, and this is what makes the playoffs so difficult to bet. Number one, like we know who these teams are. In this case, there's a lot of uncertainty. It's not necessarily true, but this is when teams throw complete change-ups, right? So I still spend all of my time digging into the matchups schematically, but you're going to have the other teams know that too, right? So in these high leverage games, that's when you want to switch things up. So over the last four games, past 4 games, the Patriots have been blitzing at like a Flores level. It's like 40%, 43%, 44%, 42%, I think, all like between 40 and 45%, blitzing a ton. And, they were going up against the Chargers offensive line. The Texans beat up offensive line against, then they played the Dolphins and the Jets in the final 2 games. So do they continue to do that this week? If they do, I think it'll open up some opportunities for Stidham to break some. And this is just me, just general thoughts on the game. Or do they say, you know what, we're actually going up against one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. So let's dial back the blitz and just sit back and make Stidham, throw into lots of zone coverage and read the defenses. And the Patriots do a excellent job of changing up their looks on the back end. So maybe you get more coverage and less blitzing. So I mean, they're going to mix it up. I'm just saying, as maybe they don't blitz as much as they have been. So I'm curious to see how the Patriots approach this from a game planning perspective. And additionally, I could envision one of the other reasons I like the Broncos first quarter as well. I could see the Patriots coming out very conservatively on offense. I know that's not Drake May's nature, and they've started slow both playoff games. But in Denver on the road, the last thing you want to do here is, especially when you don't know what Stidham in this offense is going to look like, right? Like there's a chance that Stidham is just a disaster. The last thing you want to do is, Nick Bonito and company force May into, they strip sack him, go up 7-0, and the crowd's going crazy. Stidham doesn't have to, he can play from ahead. So the Patriots might be a little bit more conservative here early on in the game. And because there might just be a chance that Stidham is a complete disaster. But that's going to be the key. May has to feel pressure much better than he did against the Chargers and the Texans. He has a 45% pressure to sack ratio. It's his one weak area. If you look at his whole body of work, it's sack pressure leading to sacks. He was 28th in the NFL in that department at like 22%. That's doubled in the playoffs. Now, granted, he's gone against the Chargers and Texans defense, but he's getting another great defense on the road with a weak offensive line. They're going to have to deal with the noise. So I'm curious to see, number one, how much the Patriots blitz, and then how aggressive are they early on against this defense. So yeah, a lot of things to watch early that I'm interested
How
in.
big of, like, because I'm so in the thick of it here, I feel like I overpay attention to it. But to you guys outside of the New England market, how much of a liability do you think Will Campbell has been?
Huge. I mean,
I
he's
think so
given up like
too.
a 10.5, 11% pressure rate since he returned from injury. I've always had some questions about his ability as a blindside tackle against elite. Now, that doesn't mean he can't become very, very good. He's a rookie. But yeah, the Texans were clearly
Will
targeting
on Will
him.
crime.
Yeah, Will Anderson ate him alive.
And
Will
Owe
on Will crime.
looked like an all-pro going against him the week before. So yeah, I have a lot of concerns of how he's going to hold up against the Denver pass rushers. And this is a Denver team that's, top 5 in pressure rate without blitzing. They are going to bring blitzes. They are going to be aggressive. And there's no question the Patriots have been lucky with turnovers and with fumbles. And the Broncos defense has been unlucky up until last week all year when it comes to fumbles and turnovers. So maybe they are still due for some bounces here. But that is a major concern here is, can the offensive line hold up? Because one of the Drake May's gifts and his biggest strengths is his downfield passing. Throws a beautiful deep ball. And he's going to get a lot of man coverage this week. And can the offensive line give May enough time, and can he feel that pressure and avoid losing the ball? And a big part of that is going to be Will Campbell. Because you also just don't want to use your tight ends to be blocking the entire game. And because that's one of the ways you want to attack this Denver defense over the middle of the field with like Henry and so we'll see. And then this is that's a great matchup because Denver's defense is #1 in explosive pass rate allowed. New England, one of the best explosive passing offenses in the league. And the difference might just be how quick can Denver get pressure on May.
Can May handle the pressure? We feel pressure to hand out a winning parlay. Let's get to it. 2 kings and a queen.
You should feel pressure, Kravitz.
But we all do. It's been a couple of weeks for us, guys.
It has been a couple of weeks.
As a collective. 2 kings and a queen presented by DraftKings. Let's get to it. Kendra, kick us off with a couple of nominations with the 2 games we have in front of us.
So this is tough because Stuckey and I are very in lockstep here. I had the Rams money line plus 130 and then Denver to cover the 4.5. I don't know how we want to attack this because of the picks that you guys have. So I am open to interpretation, but me and Stuckey are holding hands this week, and then there's just Kravitz.
I'm going to nominate the Seahawks money line. I could even get behind. I mean, we kind of need a win, so this would be dangerous. I could get behind a Rams spread and Seahawks money line within the same parlay. I think the game is going to be really close, so there's a chance that we could thread that needle.
No.
Obviously, I can't.
Nope. Can't do it.
I'm not. Relax, guys. You can yell at me in a minute, okay? I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying I would have a conversation about it.
I know how this is going to go.
I can't vote for the Rams money line, so if I have to be, I have not bet the Patriots or the Broncos. I'm on the Patriots to win the Super Bowl. I bet that right when Bo Nix went down. There's a part of me that
are you shaking right now?
I'm gonna feel this. I'm very excited. I'm gonna feel this out live. But if we got to throw it in the parlay, that's fine. I begrudgingly vote for the Broncos plus the points, but I don't love that. I think a lot of people are underrating Bo Nix, oddly enough, who I was eager to fade a week ago, and now it seems like all of the people I respect the most cannot wait to back Jarrett Stidham in this situation, and I just feel like you all are walking into it, but. Anyway,
I mean, I'm not eager to back Jarrett
4.5.
Stidham. If the line was 3.5, I wouldn't. That's all. All right, I'm going to go Denver as well. So we'll start off with Denver plus the points. Anything better than 4, I think, is good.
Same.
I'll change mine up. We'll go because we already have Denver. I was going to suggest Denver first quarter. My first suggestion will be Rams. We'll buy it to 3. Well, it's a parlay. We can buy it to 3.5. And I already talked about that game. I just think this is more of a coin flip. It just comes down to the coaching adjustments. I have better quarterback, and I don't like. I think there's just an overreaction to what's happened over the past 3 weeks. That's the name of the game. I mean, you look historically, teams off 35+ point wins. It's almost like an auto fade for me the next week. Teams are never as good as they appear. And historically, if you do that just blindly, you've hit at over 62%. We've only seen one team in the playoffs over the past 20 years, by the way, win by 35 or more, and it was the Patriots, 2012. I think beat the Broncos by 35. And then the next week, at home against the Ravens, laying 7, should have lost, but Lee Evans dropped the pass, and then Billy Cundiff missed a 27-yard field goal.
You don't sound traumatized at all,
I'm gonna say to you what you would say to me in this situation, Stuckey. You should never do anything blindly. You could do the exact same thing in the other direction, betting on the Seattle Seahawks to win this football game. And Evan lays it out wonderfully in the primer this week. Rams off of an overtime game. Teams historically lose in those situations. Rest disadvantage. Seattle playing on Saturday. The Rams playing on Sunday. Teams in that spot 1-8 straight up. The Rams are playing their 3rd consecutive road game. Also a losing spot straight up historically. So if we're going blind trends, Seattle at home in the playoffs has been money over the last decade.
I mean, this isn't a blind trend. That's just basically how I handicap. That's my overarching philosophy on handicapping the NFL. Buying low, selling high. Teams are never as good as they look, or the previous week, never as bad as they look. And that 35 plus point stat just is a way to contextualize that. That it just goes back to me saying, I think we're overreacting to what we've seen over the past 3 weeks. After 16 weeks, when these teams played in Seattle, everyone said Rams are clearly the best team in the NFL. They're going to win the Super Bowl, and I think we've gone too far since. That's all.
I mean, I can't argue with you too much about this. I'm not betting Seattle minus the points. I am paying up to take them on the money line because I mean, these two games that we've seen with these two teams have shown us the margin is razor thin between these two teams. I'm not trying to get hooked on a Seattle wins by 2. I think Seattle's the better football team. I think their home field advantage is significant, and the Rams being on the road 3 weeks in a row, I question Stafford's health. I feel like people have just neglected that. And the Rams defense has not looked as good as it did in the middle of the season. So I think Seattle's going to win,
the Rams
and I just
defense
don't
looked
want to
good
lay
last
it.
week. The Rams defense looked very, very good last week. I have to say. I mean, their run defense was very good. I was impressed by their run day. I think the Rams are still the better overall team, but I do make the Seahawks a slight favorite. You have to take into account the situation, home field, et cetera, et cetera. But it's super close. I mean, they were separated in the regular season by 1 yard and 1 point. But I'll say, so Rams will buy it to 3.5. And then my other one we'll go Kayshon Boutte under 2.5 receptions. I know he's cleared this in both playoff games, but his biggest games all season have come against zone-heavy defenses. I think he's going to get a huge dose of Surtain here. Man-heavy Broncos defense. When Patriots play man, May targets Henry and Diggs in the slot. I think that's where they're going to target here. The pressure from Denver, I think, can get to May. And there's also just a chance that the Patriots blow out the Broncos, or that this is very low scoring and it's like becomes a field position battle, and there's just not as many opportunities for Boutte. So, yeah, I'm going to go. He's not a target share monster. He's more like we'll take a couple deep shots to him, and you might get the best corner in the NFL. So under 2.5 at plus money. I think during the regular season, let me see.
One catch for 50 yards sounds like his stat line in this game.
Yeah, I'll say 2 for 58 is what he finishes at. But if you're curious, during the regular season, he went under 2.5 in 9 of 14 games. And remember, they played one of the easiest schedules in NFL history of opposing defenses. So, and you're going to see a lot of man here. I think Pat's going to be heavy Diggs tight end game. And the Broncos are number 1 in explosive pass rate allowed. And that's where Boutte does most of his damage. So those are my two. We'll buy the Rams to 3.5 or Boutte under 2.5 receptions.
I'm gonna lean into that Boutte. Give me Kayshon Boutte. What do you
I'm
got,
taking the
Kendra?
Rams. So Evan, it's your time to shine.
I guess I'd go with the Rams. I'd be kind of scared on like a 2 to 3 kind of what you saw last game. Like he doesn't look at Boutte at all, and then one drive he hits him 2 or 3 times. It just becomes unlucky. I think 3 is probably his ceiling, which makes it a good bet, but I don't know. I'm a little jaded based off what we just saw.
All right, Rams 3.5. Are we buying the Broncos up to 5? By the way, as
No.
a collective here. Okay, 4.5.
No, as long as you're above 4, you're fine.
4.5 for the Broncos, 3.5 for the Rams. I have the Seattle money line. Nobody's voting for that, so I'm not even going to bother.
Both of these.
And Kenneth Walker over 85.5 yards rushing. His average on the season is 20 yards short of this, but obviously this number is what it is because he's the lone wolf now in the backfield, and I highly doubt they're about to turn to Velus Jones in the Charbonnet role. It's just going to be give the ball to Kenneth Walker 25 times. I know you said, hey, the Rams defense looked good last week, right? But since week 14, they've allowed 130 yards per game on the ground. All of that workload is going to land on Kenneth Walker's shoulders. We have an injured quarterback in Sam Darnold. They have to feed Kenneth Walker in this game. I think Seattle's going to win. To me, one of their only chances at victory is Kenneth Walker having a big game on the ground and them leaning on him in order to get the dub. So 85.5 yards, which, by the way, he has already cleared this against the Rams in a victory. So we have seen what that looks like.
Olani's back though, so I think he'll be the backup. But yeah, I mean, one of the reasons, and I think the Rams will take the same approach, that the Seahawks offense has become way less explosive. The teams are using lighter boxes. Darnold has become a shell of what he was early in the season, and the run game has become significantly more successful, as I mentioned. So they were 27th in EPA per play running the ball over the first 10 weeks. Since then, they're 11th. So yeah, by far, I would roll with Walker, who should get heavy workload here, and I do think that they want to play a complementary game here to limit Darnold's attempts as much as they can, and the Rams are going to want to take away those explosives. So I do think Walker will have a good day. So that of the two, I'm definitely going Walker.
I have to because I'm on the Rams money line. So,
well, don't sound too excited about it.
I'm not.
All right, there you go. We have
about 6-1 at DraftKings.
There you go. Yes, plus 593 over at DraftKings, where the crown is yours. Broncos plus 4.5, Rams plus 3.5. Kenneth Walker over 85.5 yards rushing. That's going to do it for today's episode. Special thanks to our producers, Gifford Gould and David Payne, Stats Hound Evan Abrams. The favorites will return on Sunday night, right after the late game, and we'll break it all down right here on the Action Network YouTube page. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next time here on the Favorites Podcast, presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours.